Trump and Xi downplay differences over Iran ahead of Beijing summit, BBN, May 13, 2026. U.S. President Donald Trump downplayed differences with Chinese President Xi Jinping over the Iran war before leaving for a high-stakes summit in Beijing. The Trump administration has been urging China to use its influence over Iran to help end the more than 2-month-old conflict between Iran and Israel on terms favorable to Washington. In particular, the U.S. has called on China to help push for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a key route for global oil shipments. Before departing for Beijing, Trump told reporters at the White House that he would discuss the issue with Xi, saying he's been relatively good. Moments later, however, Trump added that although there were many issues to discuss, Iran was not a main concern because the U.S. had it very much under control. Trump has previously criticized China for not doing enough to pressure Iran, but he has also acknowledged that Beijing helped bring Tehran back to ceasefire talks when negotiations nearly collapsed. Analysts say the Trump administration is trying to prevent disagreements over Iran from overshadowing other major issues in U.S.-China relations, including trade disputes, rare earth export controls, fentanyl precursor chemicals, and technology tensions. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent have also recently urged China to use its influence over Iran to help reopen the Hormuz Strait. Around 20% of the world's oil shipments pass through the Strait of Hormuz, making instability in the area a direct threat to global energy markets and oil prices. Because China is one of the largest buyers of Iranian oil, Washington argues that the closure of the strait could also place heavy pressure on China's economy. Beijing, however, has criticized U.S. sanctions as unilateral pressure and activated a blocking statute to prevent Chinese companies from complying with Iran-related U.S. sanctions. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently met Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in Beijing and defended Iran's right to develop nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Xi has also indirectly criticized Washington, saying international law should not be applied selectively and that the world should not return to the law of the jungle. Tensions between Washington and Beijing have risen since the U.S. and Israel began military strikes on Iran. Last month, Trump threatened to impose a 50% tariff on Chinese goods, following reports that Beijing was preparing to send new air defense systems to Iran. Trump later backed away from the threat, saying he had received a written assurance from Xi that China would not send weapons to Tehran. Analysts say both Trump and Xi are trying to avoid another major trade war and do not want the Iran crisis to further damage U.S.-China relations.